that sound means we are now live here on our YouTube channel, Tackle Trading's Halftime Report. I am your host, Coach Tim Justice from Tackle Trading. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are halftime crew, pop in and put Team Tackle right in the chat, our official hashtag that we always start with each and every day here on the Halftime Report. Friday is fun day, and Coach Frank, Breakout Frank, is here to join us as he always does. We're going to be breaking down quite a bit of action here. We've got the day after the debate. The last presidential debate was last night. Not much market reaction to anything that happened there. We'll get Mark's take on that if there is any market implication. We had PMI numbers out of the Europe and the U.S. Europe showed contraction and the U.S. still showed expansion. Other than that, the market reaction to that data was not too significant, and really more ongoing stimulus conversations, earnings reports. But this technical battle that's been developing on these charts now for a couple of weeks is still very much in play. Support being tested the entire week of trading here, just a couple of weeks before the presidential election. Let's get down to business here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Frankie, how you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Glad to be here. As always, a little windy in my neck of the woods, so I'm crossing my fingers that I don't get blown away. If I vanish mysteriously, that is why. It's not an alien abduction.
Yeah,
but doing well. Although I got to say, just in case folks around here don't know, are you tired of earnings season yet?
Yeah. The further you get through it, though, you start getting into where, okay, a lot of companies are behind you. So this week, I'm definitely still tired of earnings season. By the time we get through next week, a lot of the companies will have reported. But Frank, it does blow up your scans. There's no question about that.
Oh, yeah, it just is not a directional trader's idea of a good time. But you're right. Next Friday, I'll be probably even happier because I'll be like, listen, the end is in sight. I can see it on the other side. I mean, next week, we've got like 170 S&P companies. You got the bigs too, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Chevron, Exxon. I mean, you got the who's who next week. So it should be an interesting week. Good week to kick back, learn a little something new, read some books.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marky, how you doing today on the Friday afternoon or Friday morning here? Full week of trading that has really gone nowhere. Markets are being tested at support, but pleasantries first. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. No, I'm doing great. Listen, this has been a good stretch for my style of trading. So Frank can complain about earnings season. You can complain about earnings season. I'm having a hell of a fun time. So it's amazing how the different approaches to the market, people have different things that bug them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and you like general back and forth consolidation, markets that aren't screaming 4% a day either, to where we're kind of just, we're meandering around here. I think the market conditions, you do like these kind of price actions, don't you?
Oh, it's ideal for me. It's ideal for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I like me a good setup every once in a while, but, I've been saying for a few weeks, I don't think we have the sentiment conditions for that, right? And there's not a quantitative, it's like not a mathematical formula you can point to, like with technical analysis, but
we're meandering around here. I think the market condition, and somebody's sharing their sound there. I think that's Cody. Probably.
Sorry about that, guys.
No problem. No problem. It's a little meta when you hear your own voice coming through.
It's weird, right?
It is weird, right? Yeah.
No, and we're heading, as far as sentiment goes, and we'll get more into this in a little bit. We're heading into it's going to be an interesting stretch. 11 days out from the election. Going to be interesting to see how the market reacts next week, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Let's start with the technicals, though, Frank. Obviously, support is in play. Coda, you're doing the screen share, so kind of try to follow along with what Frank is doing here. But Frank, give me a full technical read on the S&P if you can.
Yeah, you got it. Well, for what it's worth, support continues to hold. Right. So, you have to respect that we continue to play defense. We've got that support. I think it's probably fair to call it, just north of 34, depending on how, precise you like to be. You're going to look at, yesterday's low, the weekly candlestick low, right? But we've got a pretty good support level in place. On the other side of things, we've really created a little bit of an intraday downtrend throughout the course of this retracement, right? And that's kind of what we're bumping our head into here, or we did bump our head into here today. So right now it looks, like it's kind of a little, triangle-ish trying to develop. I think as long as we hold that, I call it the 50-day moving average at 34, just to give it a nice round number. I think if we continue, I expect that to continue to fight for us, I guess is probably the best way to put it. If we can kind of get this shorter term intraday, hourly, however you want to call it, downward trend to start working back to the upside, maybe we can see some price appreciation. And we've got so many earnings, coming out next week. I mean, it could see, yo-yo it pretty easily, right? But technically, we've not really done anything wrong. We've not really done anything too terribly right either. We've held support. That's a good thing. But we've really just not established really any momentum back to the upside, at least as of yet.
Market prices are holding support here amidst, quite a bit of speculation around stimulus. Mark, the headlines each and every day, we make fun of them almost every day here on the halftime report because like stimulus hope, stimulus fades, stimulus this, stimulus that. Marky, what is the latest on stimulus? For our daily update here.
The daily as the stimulus turns update. All right, so we have this week. This has been the most interesting week on stimulus headlines that I think I've seen. You've had a lot, the same amount. Now, in previous weeks, any positive stimulus headline during that nice 3-week stretch was just boom, boom. This week, you get a little bit of bump, and it's immediately sold off. As it just, I think people are realizing that this deal isn't happening before the election. The ones today, in the day's first round of stimulus jawboning that we had today, that pretending to work hard to get a deal, we had Nancy Pelosi saying on NBC this morning that a stimulus bill can be passed before November 3 if President Trump cooperates. And then the White House came out and said, what else did she say? She said she'd been back and forth with the White House, and she concluded that the president wants a bill. I really believe that. And then the White House came out and said through the press secretary saying that Pelosi is making it harder by not budging even 1 inch. All right. Mm-hmm. So we are now 11 days out. I thought 40 days out, like once we got into that range, I was like, there's no way they're going to give a deal this close to the election. It, for me, would just literally be staggering if next week, just days before the election, they pass a stimulus deal. Hey, man, I might be wrong on this, but it just would just, from a political perspective, seem mind-blowing. So 11 days out, not a whole lot of days left to get that deal done.
How many bills passed between that time frame of the election and inauguration? Like, let's say Joe Biden takes the presidency. How many bills have ever been passed where the outgoing president signs that bill?
Well, it happens, but
yeah, I mean, that's the question too. Is if let's say Biden takes the presidency, is Trump going to sign the is the stimulus thing going to go through, or are they just going to hold it all off until inauguration?
They probably, most of the analysis I've seen out of the bank say if it doesn't get passed before the election, expect it in the February range of next year.
And that, to me, that's a little way overextended.
So that would be a long time out.
Mm-hmm. People need it. People really need it.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of real economic problems out there in this country, no question, Cody. People still with unemployment and not back to work and all those kind of things. So I do think from a real world perspective, people do need it. From a political perspective, Mark, the odds definitely have to go down the further and closer we get to the election. There was also a presidential debate last night. Was there anything, Mark, you saw that was market implicating, market moving, anything like that?
Nope.
Yeah, yeah, I watched it as well.
There was no new information. There was both candidates reiterated stance positions. There was no new information for the market.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So here we are, Frank, with a lack of clarity, and the market's kind of behaving that way, back and forth, 5 days in a row now for the entire week of trading, holding support, but not really gaining anything. I think what you talked about was absolutely dead on the way I feel about it. Somewhat not counterproductive, but not productive either. It's not like we're getting the upward movement. We're not carrying through 2 days in a row. You had the nice buy-ups off of support, but Mark is right. Every time we get a little bump up in the market, it's being sold off intraday, just kind of profit taking here and there as we're stuck down here in the mud. Let's see here. Noah Davidson, Coach Noah did just pop in. I believe, Noah, you came to save Cody. Is that right?
Not that Cody really needs saving per se, but yeah, I came because he invited me.
He's complaining about being in Hawaii and not having a great internet connection. Cody, we do not feel bad for you, young man.
Trouble in paradise. Trouble in paradise.
When I'm streaming the YouTube and running screen at the same time. It's just a lot being pushed through the computer, and it skips a lot. So I just asked Noah to come in.
Just had to bring in the big guns. How you
Sounded a
doing,
little
Noah?
defensive there.
You know,
All right.
hey,
Go ahead, Noah.
I'm here on a Friday, which is always good because I get to hang out with the breakout Franks of the world. You know, there's really no other breakout Frank in the world, so I guess it's just you, Frank.
It is true. I think I probably am the only one of that.
That's right. By the way, Noah, now that you're here, I want to get your technical read on the marketplace. So what are you seeing in the price action this week?
A lot of like wait and see. I mean, you're seeing a little whipsaw. It's like, oh, maybe a little stimulus rally, but then there's not going to be stimulus and it gives it up. But I think it's just oscillating with indecisions, probably the best way I would describe it. And it seems to be a little bit range bound on the intraday chart. So when you break it down in the intraday chart and look at what's going on down in here, just chopping back and forth between the support and resistance zones. And it'll break eventually one way or the other. But I don't see any, it's going to require some sort of external stimulus, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe a fear sell-off, maybe some news on stimulus.
Well, in that little range that we put in for about 5 days here, Frank, between 3,460 on the S&P and 3,400 on the S&P, we're smack in the middle of that. A lot of congestion, a lot of back and forth. It'll be interesting even to watch the rest of the day here, whether we ramp into the close, sell into the close, or even just fade into the close. I don't think it really changes my read. What about you, Frank?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think one thing that is worth watching is, if we are able to kind of hold this, support on the intraday, build a higher level of support and take out, not quite a double top on the SPX, but it's pretty close on the intraday, puts us right around 34.74-ish. I think if we can kind of get back through that, the bull should have a little bit of an easier time gaining a little momentum. Mm-hmm. That would give us, at least that would give me some faith on the intraday reversal. Until we get through that, I think, I'm with Noah. As long as we're stuck in this range, I mean, who knows, how long we're going to be here. Sooner or later, we will come out one way or the other, right? And I think for a signal, that's what we're waiting for, is to get a break one way or another. For me, that'd be right around 34.75 for that first signal on the bullish side, at least as it sits on a Friday.
Noah, give me a quick look at the NASDAQ, Dow, and Russell. You can flash through them rapid fire style, but just tell me if you're seeing anything.
Hey, just one last second. Will you go back to ES real quick?
Sure, yeah.
So, Frank, you know about the slap down of the 9. Do you put any emphasis, because we're in a little pinch right now, do you put any emphasis on the 9 slapping it down right at the start, or is that just normal price behavior?
And that's kind of one nice thing about getting a break. We kind of push back through that. Yeah, am I super concerned about it? Probably that's not how I would look at it, but it's not helping, right? It's only a potential bad thing. So how much it hurts, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it being on top of us doesn't help us out, right? For me, we'd break back above that to kind of, once we kind of get back above that 9, my personal history suggests, you do a lot better when you're going with the flow of that 9. I imagine yours does the same. So a little bit, it's not a good thing. How bad of a thing is, I'm kind of undecided on that, but I just look at it as it's no good comes of being slapped down by that 9.
The two of you have done more moving average research than anybody I know. Let me ask you a question I don't know the answer to, Mark. So I'm interested in what your take is. With the rising 20 and the rising 50 and a falling 9, what is the probability in other market conditions of which one wins the fight?
If this was a 5-minute chart, I would like the upside potential a lot. If this was a 15-minute chart, I would like the upside potential a lot. One of the problems, though, in applying to the day chart, right, is that these things take days and weeks to play out. And so, the pattern is set up nice from a bullish standpoint. And if this was like the middle of June and nothing was going on.
Oh, he froze.
I thought it was me.
Sweet. I've got an idea that I need some help with. I know we have a programmer out there in our community that can do this. Could I get somebody to program an audio sound bite to play every time the price hit the 9 that was like a slapping sound, like a so every time it touched,
that would be pretty cool.
Would be fantastic. Somebody can do it. I know it can be done.
If we're going to do that, can I get an audio soundbite of Matt analyzing crude oil so I can just play that each and every day? Because it's the same for 6 months. Poor Matt, I throw him the crude oil analysis and it's like, what do you want me to do with this here?
No, I like your idea. It should be a slap when it's going up to the 9 and like a boing sound.
A boing,
off the
yeah,
9
that would be
when
perfect.
It,
And
when it goes down to the 9.
so I used to use back in the day. I used to use a platform. It was the MetaTrader, and I had it with sound bites. Like it would every time my alert went off, I would get either the drill sergeant like yelling at me to get up, get out of bed, blah blah blah, and then I would have on the good side, it would come up with a Homer Simpson sound bite that would say, "Woohoo! Look at that thing. We're gonna make tons of money."
Nice.
Yeah, but I can't. That was Metastock. That was the Metastock platform that I did that with. So I know that TOS can do that type of thing, and you can import sound bites for alerts. So I think that'd be cool.
It sounds like the kind of thing that would be cute for a couple of days.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. That's all I like. I just need a little entertainment value. Tim.
One or two days, and then you'd be like, all right, I'm gonna load this.
Get this thing off. Yes,
but there's some novelty there other people might appreciate and download too.
Well, and then your trading might just become like Pavlov's dog. Every time you hear something, you're like, oh shit, got to do something.
Hey, if you develop the right Pavlovian response, you can classic condition yourself into good behavior. How about that?
Absolutely. By the way, there's not much else in the indexes. They all look almost the same. Noah, you can flash through.
I actually really like the NASDAQ setup here just because it's such a clean little drop with slowing momentum into the catalyst. And so if you get a pop out of the NASDAQ, I just like the setup. It's got a nice little rounding bottom forming maybe. And then the other indices like the Dow, it's a lot shallower on the pullback. So, if you get a springboard here, this kind of ends up looking more like a cup and handle if you rally out of this little sideways drift here. And very, very similar on the Russell too. Like, again, take a look at the Russell and it's just more of a, drifting sideways time correction more than a pullback. And so that leads to a decent breakout potential. A lot of overhead resistance at 1700, but it's just right up there on, didn't pull down too hard.
Yeah. I mean, everything looks like a retracement except for the rut. Obviously, with that base, it could easily just be a breakout play if it does confirm and run. Let's look at the commodities real quick here. Let's go to crude oil first if we can. All right, Noah, Frank, chartist extraordinaire. Anything in that chart from last week to this week that you find interesting?
It served up another dose of meh for me. With it tried to break out, like gave you a little head fake, like you thought it might break up a 42, but then it failed. Mm-hmm. And its mother would be disappointed in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give it a no. It's still very, very blah for me. Not a place that I really, day trades aside, I'm sure it's been great for the intraday players. And so not an issue on that, but on the swing side, it's just until something happens, and I don't know what that exact something is going to be. Like Noah said, it tried to break out. I wasn't all that interested in that breakout, but if I was, it certainly didn't reward my faith, right? Mm-hmm. So today, breaking a little bit of the weekly floor. Just I continue to maintain there's going to be easier things to do directionally speaking. I'm sure Mark loves it, from a cash flow perspective, him Gino selling, 3 delta naked puts and stuff. I'm sure the day traders have had a pretty good time, but for the directional swing traders, I'm not seeing it.
Mm-hmm. By the way, there is some speculation out of Russia. Vladimir Putin might pull his part of the deal with OPEC Plus. They're not doing anything yet, and they don't expect anything until January. That's how dry the crude oil news is, Frank. Speculation on what Russia might do 2 or 3 months from now on a deal that they have with Saudi Arabia is the only thing that I could grab in the headlines. So it's stuck in the mud for me, news-wise, sentiment-wise, and chart-wise. Gold next here, if we can, Noah, take a peek at this. And this one's just pinned right in here at this 1900 zone. Frank, in some ways, productive development on the chart. If you catch a breakout here, holding now around this 1900 mark, really legitimately just a doji here today. Frank, what are you seeing in that chart?
Yeah, listen, if someone plays the breakout, I completely get it. I would have no technical issues as the development has been nice. We continue to build support, right? Build it higher, higher, higher. We now get the twofer. If we break that top, we also break the 50 SMA. Doesn't hurt our chances. So I would have no objection to starting to look at it from a directional perspective on that break personally. I think that is fairly legitimate as far as the signal goes. Again, especially if we continue to build higher levels of support like we've done over the last several weeks. I think that is very productive development personally. And I always like the idea of taking a little stab when, gold gives you signals coming out of these sideways patterns because it's a sideways and then pop and run, right? And will it run this time? I have no idea, or I would tell you, but I'm not opposed to taking little stabs when we get those signals, because I know it's history and I know it can have pretty decent price appreciation on those. But until we break that resistance, it's a moot point. If we, give up this, nice productive building of support that we've seen, probably change my opinion. But as it is right now, I think it's a legitimate opportunity above resistance personally.
Marky, welcome back. Obviously,
when your internet goes out, because my daughter's here doing homeschool and I'm here doing a show and I got my live trading and your internet goes out, doesn't that fear stoke you? Like, is this going to be 4 minutes or
Yep.
4 hours?
Yep.
And then immediately as a trader, I'm like, what did I leave open that I wanted to close today? And then you start being like, where's the local Starbucks?
Dude, I'm going to go full hippie right now. Put my hippie hat on. I think society would be better if we all had 1 day off the internet every week, just like cold.
Yeah,
Just
make
one?
that Saturday or Sunday, not during the trading week.
Sure, I don't
right?
want it on a Friday morning for sure, as we're closing the trading week. No, but I'm with you, Mark, and it does remind me of an old Joe Rogan bit. Like, if the grid goes down, none of us know what to do. Frankie,
no.
I mean, when we lose Wi-Fi, it's like, okay, I'm going to unplug this and plug it back in. I'll wait a minute and see if I can reset the router. You call customer service, but we're helpless. We're just literally.
It's bad. A couple of years ago, there was a major issue at my in my neighborhood, and internet was out for like 3.5 days. It was weird, to put it nicely. It was really, really odd. I read a lot. So.
Oh, but nothing wrong with that. All right, let's keep flashing through the markets here. Dollar next, if we can. NOAA, UUP. Let's get the ETF. Stuck in the mud as well, kind of waiting on, I don't know what it's waiting on specifically, but it is now consolidating down here near support. Noah, what are you seeing in the chart? Obviously, it failed on the breakout. It's come back down here. I'm neutral on the dollar in the short term. Long term, I'm bearish on the dollar. That hasn't really changed from a fundamental perspective. Noah, what are you looking at?
That your assessment from a fundamental perspective is really actually what I see on the chart. I just see, neutral, sideways chop with the highs getting lower, and that $25 base probably going to break at some point. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. I mean, the stimulus and the printing will only lead to weaken the dollar. It is kind of a question of the dollar versus what's going on with the other major currency pairs, but I'm expecting them to behave about the same. So I'm expecting relative weakness from currencies.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I want to get your reaction. Did you see the Eurozone PMI numbers come in? I wish Matt was here as well to get his reaction. But basically, we fell below 50 for the first time in quite some time, signaling the potential for a double dip recession in Europe. Mark, did you see some of that weakness?
Yeah, no, those European numbers have been signaling there for some time. And that's, I mean, listen, things aren't exactly robust. I mean, one of the things that we've jettisoned out of this, everyone knows, monetary and fiscal stimulus. So the underlying economy isn't robust at all right now. So it's not surprising at all to see that happen. I want to be surprised to see that happen here in the United States in the coming months either.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, their service industry obviously was affected even more. It came in at 46.2 compared to manufacturing at 49.3. But both, if you're below 50 on a manufacturing number, that does sign contraction. Something to watch, obviously, with rising COVID cases in Europe. That is one of the economies that obviously we do a lot of business with. So we'll keep watching that. Let's move through. And last one here on the broad markets, Bitcoin. Frankie, we didn't get your take on this one yet. This chart has been incredible. Matt has been nailing the technical analysis. Mark has been calling for these tops to be running. And Mark, I don't think you're officially at where we're at the Bitcoin top yet, right? We're just at a high point, right?
No, I mean, listen, whenever you get overextended from the 9, those short-term moving averages, I mean, there's a little bit of profit taking, absolutely, that occurs here. The real beauty of whatever happens here is going to come in the coming weeks. I just pray we don't have a risk off everything environment, because that's going to take Bitcoin down. And it's in a really overextended period of the chart. If for next week, if we had anxiety about the election, right, and money flows out of markets and flows out of risk off risk on assets next week ahead of the election. It's in a bad spot in the chart for that to happen. So, it's going to be interesting to see in the coming days as short-term moving averages catch up. If they can hold that, if they can hold when those short-term moving averages, I love the potential. But we're in a little bit of wait and see pattern for the coming days right now.
Mm-hmm. Frankie, how do you read this chart? I know Bitcoin's probably not a product you trade a lot of, if at all, but it's been an incredibly strong performer here for a month. It's developing. You guys know my bias around Bitcoin. Frank, how do you read this chart right here?
Well, I think, as someone, I don't trade it, excuse me, but I know you do. So you got to like what's been happening overall. You got to like that breakout. Like Mark said, it's overextended. And kind of the way I think about it, Mark, is if it were to pull back, and this might be a little oversimplifying it, but to try to make it quick and easy, when we're extended like this, it's not that they have to pull back to the 9. It's that if they do, or if that 9 takes some time to creep up, that's pretty healthy development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty normal. So if we sell on Monday and Tuesday, normal size candles at least, while you don't love it as an owner of the product, you're not freaking out, right, Tim? You're just thinking, hey, pullbacks are part of the deal. You sit through them when you're part of your long-term, portfolio plan. On the break itself, I think you have to like it. I think you do need development if you're not. And I imagine if you're a Bitcoin trader, you're probably long in at this point in time. You do need some development, but really there's some room for it to run to the upside, right? There's still that room at about 13.5, obviously 14, a big number for it. I would like, again, I don't trade this product, so I have no intention to do this, but just technically consolidate, let that 9 rise up over the next week and push us through. I think that would be a really nice setup, but very strong. No super resistance to scare me, at least for a little bit into that 13.5 by 14 is where I would put it. Then beyond that, Tim, you were here, for a while. There's room to roll. So I wouldn't be unhappy if I were in it. I'm not. I kind of wish I was. Probably not going to do anything about it, but definitely would like to see. But a ton of momentum. You have to like that.
And by the way, my crypto nerds out there, you know who you are. We love you. I love you specifically. Make sure you're paying attention to Ethereum right now. You can't chart Ethereum and think or swim, but Ethereum's chart is looking very, very productive as well, breaking out of a key level right now. It kind of runs behind Bitcoin a little bit, Frank, like the gold, silver type thing. But when Ethereum can get cooking, it can really, really cook. So pay attention to that chart as well. I think there's some positive developments going there. Let's talk stocks here today. We got earnings roundup. We got some other corporate news that we're going to get into. Let's start with earnings and give me Intel if you can. Noah, INTC. Intel marquee, stock is down big. This is now a couple quarters in a row where they've had a devastating earnings report. The last one put them into consolidation for almost 3 months. Now we're gapping into support. Basically from the report that I saw, Mark, just weaker than expected revenue. The company came in, talked a little bit about their next generation of chips that they're going to be delayed. That's not a good sign for this company as well. More supply side and production side issues from Intel. Mark, how do you read this chart and how do you approach a company like this? Because Intel is a famous dividend player, huge Dow component, something that I think a lot of cash flow traders over the years would be interested at lower levels. What's your read on this situation here?
Listen, Intel is, every once in a while, one of the big companies, one of the large cap companies becomes really, really unpopular amongst people. And there is no mercy if a company that becomes out of vogue does anything to worry individuals. Their data center revenue was really bad. It just was really bad. And the analysts are just crucifying them. Bank of America, for example, downgraded them to underperform, lowered their price objective from 60 to 45. And you've had several analysts downgrades on Intel today. Now, the price targets they're giving, right, are 45, 50, 52, 43, in that general ballpark. But when you get price targets in the general range of where a stock is, that usually leads to a little bit of sell-off until it finds a support level. That's what Intel did last time, right? Gap down, sell off strong 4 days, and then eventually found some kind of short-term support level. That's probably where Intel is headed this time as well. You know, after these type of reports, you always want to take a few days off. You know, if you're the type to bottom fish like I am, it's not that I'm opposed to bottom fishing on Intel, but man, there's a lot of other things out there in the market. So I'm going to have to get a really, really, really good price because people hate this stock right now.
And the sentiment is completely shifted away from it. There's no question about it. I don't see investors talking about adding it at lower levels here.
I mean,
Usually,
like, listen,
do.
like
Yeah.
if for some reason Intel were to crash into the 30s, then you'd have like value investors, like, you know, they'd be like, oh, okay, now this might be interesting. But until that happens, it just seems like fair value. And when you're getting fair value, who wants fair value?
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want fair value. Not when people hate the stock.
Well, but they do enough revenue consistently for years, and this is still Intel that at deep value, I think people would be interested.
Yes,
Mark,
no, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then if you're interested in Intel and you're like, well, maybe I'm not going to wait till the 30s, you do want to technically wait for support to form, just like it did last time. Sells off, then bears have plenty of chances to send it even lower, but they fell for a couple weeks, and that foreshadowed price stability and then eventual slight price appreciation that followed. But you want to just look at what happened last time. You want something like that, some kind of bottoming pattern, some kind of support level forming before you dip your toes in again.
Frank, where is support on this chart? Is it the line Noah has his cursor on right now, or are we back at that 43 level from the March lows?
You have to say both. I think the 43, well, I know the 43, historically speaking, is a lot more important. We've had a lot of history there. So if I'm a buy the, bottom fishing type, that's probably what I'm hoping it's a drift down into that 43 and change range and look for some signals at that point in time. But the simple truth is where Noah's line is, approximately at least, buyers, that's where they stepped back in last time, right? And so that absolutely is a support level. I know for 100% certainty that last time that it got down to that price zone, buyers stepped back in. So that's kind of the first one. I wouldn't, I would feel I'd have a hard time. Like Mark said, I think you want development one way or another, but certainly on a day like today, if I'm taking a shot, I'd feel like I still had to get my stop loss down below 43. So, I'd have a hard time mapping anything out. This is going to have to do something for a while before it catches my interest whatsoever. But Mark's right. We need to let some stabilization occur, right? So, whether it's go sideways for a couple of weeks at this support and then break it, that'd be a good trade in my opinion, right? Pretty clear path down a few dollars. Build some support, get the buyers to start stepping in little by little, get some naked put sellers to come in little by little. But short term, good luck if you're trying to trade it. I don't think there's a good trade either way on this personally.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. Capital One Financial next, COF. This, obviously financial company. They came in and beat revenue expectations for the third quarter. Revenue came in at 7.38 billion compared to the 6.68 billion projected. Their EPS numbers also did come in above the line. Mark, stock getting a muted response here. Couldn't really hold the cash open, which was gapping into the resistance point. Sold off a little bit. Now we're just up a hair. Mark, what was your read on Capital One Financial's earnings?
Capital One is an interesting company in the sense that lots of credit card debt. There's been some trepidation on Capital One. It wasn't a terrible earnings report. It wasn't a robust earnings report. I think it's the type of earnings report that will quickly get absorbed into the normal technical analysis, like within days, and whatever the normal pattern that would develop, that is probably how this one is going to play.
Yeah. And I don't mind that. In fact, when I am doing my scanning, Frank, one thing that I do look for, and I would not be on this company here, but I've had a couple of companies this week where I'm like, okay, I can play the next play now because I like the development on earnings, like Nucor, even yesterday. I wouldn't talk about the numbers, but no, look at Nucor real quick, NUE.
NUE.
And I haven't seen the price today, but it's like, okay, now you're post earnings, Frank, when you don't get the huge gaps like on an Intel that blows up the chart, can you just resume chart analysis once you get through the earnings report?
I think if you have clean breakouts, yes. Another one was DFS, right? Discover Financial gapped right into resistance, yesterday, pushing through. I think you can personally. I mean, if you're trading options, obviously got to be careful with the pricing always, but pricing get a little weird, really, right, very short term after the announcement. But yeah, I think you can. I think you can look to play in all of them. Honestly, it's just even Intel is just, I don't know what that next swing looks like. I have a hard time mapping that out. Whereas on something like Nucor or even COF, I could see a scenario on COF where we hold support, that turns into a little cup and handle, and I can play that breakout, right? So I do believe you can play the next swing. I just think you have to let the next swing develop. And sometimes that's quick, and sometimes that takes a very long time. And patience has to be the name of the game.
And I know that we all want to get to charts here in a few minutes. We're going to keep flashing through the earnings, kind of give that roundup, and we will get to Frank's charts here in just a bit. I do see that we have the great and powerful Coach Emily joining us here today. By the way, Emily, come on in here. How you doing?
Hello, boys. How are you?
How you doing, Em?
Pay
Wonderful.
no attention to the woman behind the curtain. The great and powerful M has spoken.
That's right.
Oh, geez.
Can I come to Women in Trading, please? Please.
Oh, my Lord. No.
You'd never want to give them an inch, Em. The first time you say yes, then I know these guys.
I know. But no, it's a no.
Fine.
Try again next month, but it'll still be a no.
Couple
I'll
of
try.
things I want to make sure that we do promote. Women in Trading is tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You will be there live with the ladies of the Women in Trading group here at Tackle Trading. If you've never joined one of these events before, you can find the link, I believe, on the events page at Tackle Trading, and it should be in your daily email as well. Emily, I loved your blog today. I
That was
thought it
really well done. Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you.
In fact, Noah, can you bring that up? Tackle Today blog. It should be just right on the website. Emily, talk a little bit about what you wrote about today, because I thought the mindset behind it was fantastic.
Well, I was kind of thinking about, kind of like where we are in the markets and, things are just kind of like, and, I've, become a cash flow trader over time. And I kind of felt like it was important to talk about how I approach selling options, specifically the naked put strategy, because I think that's one of the most common strategies that a lot of people get started with after covered calls. And I remember when I was a directional trader and you and I having this conversation and, you can help me convert to become a cash flow trader, I was still going for the highest amount of cash flow. So even with that mindset, I was still greedy in a sense where I didn't really understand all the components that come with selling options. And I remember you talking about, having those 3 C's, looking at the charts and having the cushion and the cash flow and analyzing all of those 3 components to then make a decision, because just basing it off of just cash flow really is not the right way to approach selling options.
And cash flow traders learn that over the years, Mark. I know this is something that you kind of ascribe to as well. You don't just go for the biggest ROI percentage. Don't sell a 30 delta just because it gives you more money. You want to make sure you have enough cushion and distance to be comfortable.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things cash flow traders that are new can do is like, oh, that's a big credit, I'm going to do it, and I'm a cash flow trader. No, I mean, it's great when the market's bullish, but when the market's really bullish, go directional.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah. If you are a cash flow trader and if you've not read the blog, I did drop the link in the chat here. Team Tackle, show Emily some support. Go out there and read it and share it and get the word out. I thought it was great and powerful there, Emily, which is why I've given you the moniker here today. I don't know. I just like saying that, Frank. I don't know why.
Hey, it works for
Well,
Em.
you should, thank you for having me on. But this is something that I learned from you, when I was starting to learn how to trade options, and I use it even till now. I still look at the charts and I still remember, give it some cushion. Even when I want the cash flow, I still have that thought in the back of my mind that I still got to give it some cushion. So
yeah, don't sacrifice cushion just for more money, and you got to fight that greed. You have to fight that greed if you're a cash flow trader, and make sure you set up well. Look at the market conditions lately. It's nice to have all those deep level naked puts, Mark. I'm sure when you're using that approach, having a lot of cushion.
Oh yeah, it's been you just got to find what works for you. You got to find what works for you. And that's why tackle trading is so amazing, because there's so many different perspectives on how to do this and how to make money in the market. And then, of course, you're going to have to try your own and probably make a few mistakes and be like, I hate that. But man, if you stick with it and get through those trial and error things, and then you find your home, man, the future just becomes so much more bright. It just becomes so much more bright because you're like, I'm just going to rinse and repeat and do this constantly. I got a path. I got something I enjoy. Trading is awesome. Just find your groove.
Yep, I agree. Back on earnings roundup here, back on the charts here, Noah. American Express next. I was interested in this company's report. And by the way, it came in and kind of just missed here. The stock is down just a hair here today post earnings after they showed a 40% slump in quarterly profit. Obviously they had to set aside some money for potential defaults. Many of these companies have been doing that lately, Mark. American Express had to put $665 million on the side just in case consumers default on their credit card stuff. Their earnings came in at $1.30 a share on $8.75 billion in revenue. Mark, the expectation was $1.35 and 8.62, so a beat on revenue, but not on the actual EPS number. Mark, what you read on American Express here?
I mean, revenue's down 20% year over year. One of the problems I have with companies like this where are we trading in relation to their all-time highs? I mean, that's what I look at. Like, where are we trading? American Express has done very well for being a company that's down 20% year over year. Now, if things get back to normal at any point, I'll want to play technical signals, but until then, it's just a little too high for my taste, given where it's at still in this whole big story of COVID in 2020 and all this mess. So it's a stay away for me for now, but it is on my list of things. If things ever do get better one day and we're all living a life, American Express will be a good play. Not for me, not till that point.
Very much a neutral chart, Frank.
Yeah. It's tough to see anything too exciting. I mean, you could maybe map out some sort of, intraday, short, off of today's candles low. There's still theoretically, a couple weeks down the road, breakout potential at, 108, give or take. But yeah, for the most part, that's really neutral. And if those aren't your type of trades, I think you can find better.
A couple of quick more. Stx Seagate Technology next, and data storage, is an interesting area of the market that you've had mixed results out of many of these companies for quite some time. STX came in, they posted weaker than expected revenue for the third quarter, 93 cents a share on 2.31 billion in revenue. They were expecting only 88 cents a share on 2.34, but those numbers didn't really come in and blow the doors off. Mark, you're not getting very much a negative response here. We're down 1.3%. We were even down more, and the market has rallied off of the bottom here, holding the MAs. Is there anything here from Seagate, Mark, that grabs your attention?
We've seen this because there's a trio of memory companies: Seagate, Micron, Western Digital. So pull up WDC. A lot of these companies, their news affects each other because they're all in the memory market, different components, different aspects of it. But we've seen Micron's earnings, Western Digital's last earnings, now Seagate. Market give a muted response, not even a muted, a negative response. And but then it quickly finds support and bounces up. If you play in the memory space like I do, memory is a great cash flow space. It really is. But you just got to know how to play it. You got to treat it like its own thing. And so all the combination of Micron, Western Digitals, and Seagates points to, it kind of feels like a European data report. The economy kind of blah, right? When the economy is doing great, memory companies do great. When the economy is stuck in the mud, it can be decent cash flow if you're bottom fishing. And that's how I'd approach this whole area of the market right now.
So memory storage companies in 2020 are not doing well. Maybe there are a few things about this year we want to forget, Noah, I'm guessing.
That's exactly the joke I was just going to go for. Did you just read my mind? It's freaking me out here.
By the way.
Tim, just
I was
nailed
literally
Noah there.
typing
He's
that
like,
in the
I
chat.
know Noah.
Get out of my head.
I'm like, all right, what would Noah say here? And I channeled it. Absolutely. By the way, it might explain why the next company's doing so well. Sam, Boston Beer, they had a blowout quarter in many regards, Mark. The stock was breaking out of resistance, running into a new high. They posted 651 EPS on 463. 30% year over year revenue growth, Mark. And obviously their guidance, they did, lift that up to $14 to $15 a share above the 12 that they were at before. Blowout quarter here, Mark. It's been an incredible performer for a very long time. What's your interest here in Sam Beer?
Listen, man, this thing looks like Peloton. Like, who knew like a domestic beer company would be the next big tech company, right? It's been hot. It's been hot, but it goes back, it's been a good stock for 10 years, right? If you go to a long-term chart of Boston Beer, that's a pretty nice trend. It can have some swings, right? Can have some swings. Man, I mean, it's just not my type. When you've ran this much so far, it's just not my type of stock, but it could have a nice trading setup in the coming weeks if you're patient and wait for a setup.
Frank, whenever I see charts like this, I'm like, split the damn stock, add some liquidity. People will want to get excited about it. At $1,000 a share buying a beer stock, I mean, that's got to be a different approach for a lot of different traders, Frank. But that's a really constructive chart on a pretty good report. What are you seeing here on the gap out?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I like on earnings. A nice gap. I'm assuming into all-time highs. Now it's just about going into a little consolidation. Breaking out a week from now, that's always something on my radar. If that were to happen, that consolidation while the 9 rises is always my favorite way. But anytime, something's breaking resistance, whatever the reasons are, it's a bullish signal, right? This is a bullish signal. Doesn't mean it's an entry. I don't like the idea of buying on a day like this on something that looks like this for right or wrong. But I really do love if we can get a little consolidation followed by a break. Like Mark said, you got to be a little patient there. If you're super aggressive, I guess you could, say, hey, if it breaks today's high on Monday, that's a breakout. You're right. It is. It's just a, break of intraday high is all, but it's still a breakout. If we can get a week's worth of candlesticks, 2 weeks of candlesticks in this little range, that would be fantastic. So yeah, this will definitely not something I normally follow. And hey, Tim, I don't know how their options are, but their options aren't great. There's no rule that says we can't just buy a couple shares, right? And so it certainly will go on my list. But again, it needs these type of things. For me, they need development.
Mm-hmm. It is a better equity play. There's no question. I looked at the option chain this morning and I'm like, you can't do anything with it. Just too pricey, too big of spreads, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So stock, I think, would be the approach there for sure. Last one for me, not earnings-based, news-based. Gilead Sciences, they did get a nice little pop here today as the FDA approved remdesivir, Mark, and look at what happened immediately in that downtrend. Just faded the news. Investors have been looking for any pop.
Oh, people hate Gilead right now. Like if you did not have earnings coming up, I mean, because I like bottom fishing, and I've bottom fished off that support level off Gilead a couple times the last couple years. Man, this one just feels like it is going to implode. If you didn't have earnings coming up, what is it, next week maybe?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, there's a bearish play here on Gilead. People hate the stock right now. And if it can't get a lift off that news, I mean, because first of all, it wasn't any new news. It's like remdesivir had already been given emergency clearance. It was just an algo. It felt like AMC. It was just an algo. Hell, here's some news on Gilead, and nobody likes Gilead right now. People
faded it instantly. So yeah. All right, guys, that's what I got from a news roundup. I do want to, obviously get to charts here today. That's what people get so excited about from Coach Frank. By the way, if you are on Twitter and you're a Twitter user, @Tackle Trading is a fantastic follow. And Frank, what is your personal handle, by the way?
Frank Martin 23, as in Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Back when I made my Twitter account, I didn't, I've never been a social media guy, right? And so I made my Twitter account. I didn't realize you could make cool names for you. So, I just threw my own name out there, and obviously that name had already been taken. So I decided if you got to be somebody, be Shaq or Jordan, and Jordan won that one.
By the way, it'll tell you a lot about how my brain works and how simple-minded I am sometimes. My Twitter handle is Tim Justice Utah. So just in case you don't know, not Tim Justice Colorado, Emily, Tim Justice Utah. The Utah boy
Got
coming
it.
through. Yeah. All right, let's talk charts here, Frank. What you got, my friend?
So you betcha. And I'm just going to throw my Twitter in chat really quick here, and then we'll get to it. Not as many as you would hope, but that's to be expected this time of year, right? As we get 2 weeks from now, we'll be pretty much back to normal, both earnings and election, right? Next week, probably a little bit better. A lot of earnings coming out. One of the things, and obviously, I love to complain about earnings, but you look at something like Team, good old Team, just a fantastic little pullback into the 9, about old resistance, old breakout point after a huge, surge in volume on the breakout. And then you see you've got earnings in 6 days. So, this is what you run into.
No, Team, I believe.
So
Team. All right.
Team. Yeah, there you go. I mean, just a beautiful setup, right? Thwarted by earnings, because I'm not holding anything. Certainly, and I'm not holding Team over earnings. That's just not.
I do believe I just called that chart.
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty. It is pretty. And I found a few things that were kind of up that alley that just, the rules are there for a reason, right? I'll complain, but I won't break them. But there's always something out there. First off, how about we look at ARMK, Noah? ARMK.
I see what you're seeing.
Just a nice little breakout, right? Little pretty decent follow through here today. Not a lot of resistance until we get to that, well, we can call it 3250. That was, of course, an old pivot point, just coming above the 200. We've recently had, the 9 cross that 200, kind of a little cup and handle there over the last month or so, right? Seeing the 20 cross above that here today. Risk to reward should be there, I would expect, on something that looks like this. So nice little breakout candidate that is something I could get behind.
I see it, and I love the relative strength in the performance relative to the market. I mean, the market the last 9 days has done nothing, obviously drifting all the way down into support and fighting it, where RMK is showing, obviously where we're pushing into resistance. Definitely, I think you could map out something there if you're looking for a quick breakout swing trade.
Yeah, I've been watching these guys for a break for a while, since the last time they got pushed down at the 200. So, I'm a little biased, I'll admit it. So, how about on the pullback front? What about a VMware, VMW?
Okay.
All right.
So we had our break, right? Nice, pretty consistent top. Broke through it, pulled back, testing that old resistance as new support, lining up with the 20-day simple moving average as well. And I've seen a few things like this in tech, right? Well, I've seen more than a few, but a few that, didn't have earnings in the way, where you do have that pullback. And, beyond that pullback, if we can kind of capture, we talked a little bit about this, in the market, broad market, if we can kind of get that push, right? There's really, technically speaking, why aren't we going back to resistance, to that previous swing high, right? There's really not a lot to hold us down if we can kind of just break through that little intraday downtrend that we've developed over the last week and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like the rising moving average here. You've got the 9 in play, Mark. Mark, would that make you want to trigger only if it closed above the 9 when you see a pinch like that?
I don't know. Probably not. Because I love old resistance becoming new support. That's just a good quality signal, right? You're bouncing off the 20. I probably don't need it. The only concern I have is the same concern I have with everything right now. Like next week in the sentiment, that would be my only concern. It's a nice technical pattern though. That has some ability to maybe run if the market doesn't. But man, that looks a lot like the market the last couple of weeks.
It looks a lot like the NASDAQ. There's no doubt about it. What I like about things that look like this is we have some space, right? If we can kind of like I said, catch that momentum, get a little bit of upward movement. There's just not much. If we can flip those day traders and get them to be trading on the bull side instead of the bear side like they have been, there's just not much until we get to 156, right? There's just, I mean, there's going to be previous days highs and lows along the way, but nothing significant. So, mapping the trade out for me in those type of scenarios is I guess it makes sense to my brain.
Yeah, I still am willing to take trades next week. I know, Mark, you have some concerns about sentiment with the election coming up in 9 days. I think if you catch a good signal on a specific trade, you position size accordingly. I still think it's an environment you can take trades. Frank, are you approaching the market next week that way?
Yeah, I'm, I very naturally, it's probably less than half of what's normal during earnings season, but that's normal for me. I don't do a ton of trading during earnings season. And I'm serious when I say, if you ever want to take some time off, last week, this week and next week are the weeks to do it. As far as on the earnings schedule goes, if you're a directional trader, I mean it when I say it. But I don't really do it. But on occasions when I'm trying to do like camping trips in the summer, I usually do try to get them to line up with the July earnings. So yeah, I'm certainly open to it. I'm not going to go crazy, but even if I want to, I probably can't because there's just so many announcements in the way.
Next, my friend,
let's see. We've got another little pullback over in Autodesk, ADSK. These guys are trying, as we speak, at least, to hold up on their 9.
Okay,
And he's that bouncing sound effect right there.
So yeah, I know my Noah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So, nice. The only thing I don't like about this one, and always interested in getting other takes, is when we took out resistance, a week or so ago, or about a week ago, it didn't hold, right? So what would that have been, Monday or Friday, whatever that first red candle, that inverted hammer was. We failed the break, and I don't love that, right? And so I always kind of wonder if that's something I should be worried about, or if that was just bad timing. Looks like oh my goodness, you are an artist.
You're so good.
Well, I just I prognosticate a little bit. I see the future, the possibility. It's got a pretty good setup, and from a pullback perspective, it's pretty, but that little smackdown it created last week, you're right. That's a little disappointing. It didn't hold that breakout, but I think that gives it another opportunity. If it can come from a higher low and set up that kind of cup and handle, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with the breakouts in these scenarios. I'm always, it's always risk to reward if you're open to the pullback, right? I want a pretty good risk to reward if I'm going to try to play that pullback, but I think you could at least think about playing into that pullback if you are interested in this stock. Not a huge list today, as you'd expect, but let's take a look at Thermo Fisher, TMO, Noah.
Come on, TMO.
So, these guys have just, they've been hot, right? TMO has been cooking for quite some time. Earnings are behind them. Good response on the earnings. What I'd like to see here, as opposed to, I think at this point in time, we've got basically the same high yesterday and today. So taking that out would be a momentum signal, right? We could kind of talk bar by bar or intraday play at that point in time. But I think our best scenario is this is one that's, we continue to stay below that resistance until maybe mid part of next week. I think this is one of those that I like better on a Wednesday or a Thursday than a Monday, but the momentum is clearly there. A little break of resistance would be another signal, at least as far as I'm concerned.
This part of healthcare has been doing very well, obviously. And that's the funny thing about the healthcare sector, Frank. Sometimes certain industries are in a complete downtrend while other industries are just kicking it inside the healthcare. And I like the relative strength here for sure.
Yeah, it's been have and have not. I mean, the healthcare plans have just ripped lately. Anthem, UNH, obviously, medical devices like TMO here, a little bit of a different space, but it's been a pretty strong area as well. I'd like some development there personally. I'll be a little bit greedy as far as that goes, but if we can consolidate above that rising 9 and break through that some point late next week, early the week after, you could probably sign me up for a breakout play on this.
Yeah, very good. I like it.
Let's see, a couple more. Another one, Jeff, JEF, Jefferies Financial. Again, another little consolidator, big run up, been going sideways over the last little bit, knocking on the door of resistance. I mean, Jefferies is a pretty mellow little mover. It can move, for a relatively low price stock, but it's also not, going to swing violently on you as a general rule. Again, probably would like some development. I mean, listen, this is earnings season. You have to be, picky, and your list is small, right? But again, right at resistance, showing a lot of strength. This area, there's been some hits and misses in finance too lately, right? A lot of the blah has been, and not really bad blah, just kind of blah has been, in the big banks and the Goldman Sachs's and stuff, right? You've seen some of the insurance companies and some of the asset managers really cooking. This could be just a nice little cheap potential breakout play mid next week, in my opinion, as well.
One thing I like about this at this time of year, same thing with Nike, why I still like Nike. We'll look at Nike in a minute. But earnings are behind us, right? So it's not like, in fact, you don't have to deal with earnings for a couple of months on this one. So if you get a technical signal, something that you like, that you can trust and you can map it out, whether it's this one or another one, when companies do have the report behind us, I do kind of like that right now, Frank.
Oh yeah, because the ones that aren't behind us, I mean, you're pushing it, right? Yeah. And so, you not only need the trade to work out, but you kind of need it to work out right away, which, you always want that to happen. But, I don't want to have to leave if I don't get my technical signals just because I run out of time. I know I've had that happen a few times in my day. It's always kind of a frustrating experience. So one other little break, and I'm just curious what you guys think about this one. It's NTNX. Nutanix. So the last couple of weeks, or I guess month and a half or so, put a little double bottom, right? Broke out.
I like that. I like that one a lot.
So
I see what you're seeing. I see it.
So it's kind of a double whammy, right? You're getting you had the double bottom, in second half of September, early October, consolidated and are breaking through that. And it's also kind of lining up with that old resistance from back in May without really a lot of overhead until we get into the 29 range. Nothing significant, at least to my eyes. Again, another potentially a cheap risk type of a trade, right? A little momentum on our side. So, Mark, you like this? You like this one? I always
like it a lot. I like it a lot.
I get a one that Mark likes. So,
what I like it because when I see this, I see a 5-minute chart. Comes up in June, right? Like if this was 5 minutes, this would be like a whole days of action, right? Comes up to the June, the 200, but doesn't sell off. Tries to make a big bump on earnings, but then the momentum, but then it just slowly falters. And now it's finally having that second attempt. I love this chart.
What I like is that old gap. I love that little vacuum back there. I mean, it crossed up into there once, but I absolutely love that vacuum of, price action in there and that potential for it to come up and fill that.
Looking good.
Yeah, I think I could get on board with that one. Let's see here.
One last thought on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite part of the chart is cheap risk. The fact that I could map out a trade below, say, yesterday's candle and still get very good reward to risk, on the setup. I like the fact that I have got cheap risk here.
Yeah, and I think, that's what you're seeing on, things like, VMware. That's what you're seeing on, I think Jeff, most of these are, not wild trades, setups, at least. I guess that's eye of the beholder. To me, most of them are pretty mellow type of characters.
Yep.
So Paul brought up Abbott. Terrence, I think AMD's got earnings next week, don't they? So I'm not going to worry too much about because they're close, aren't they?
Yeah, it's got to be coming
2 weeks.
Yeah. Next week, I think.
I think ABT, Paul, is behind earnings. It's a little bit. I think it needs some development. I think if we continue to hover at this resistance level for another week or so, it becomes an easier breakout to visualize going forward. We do have kind of those old tops there. For me, I see it. I could see, a breakout on it. I wouldn't say, I always say, something breaking resistance. It's an opportunity to buy if you're interested. But I don't think, at least as it currently sits, I don't think it would catch my attention. I think it's one of those that give it some time in this range if it's going to let us have it. Understandable. If it breaks, I mean, it's a break, right? Just because it wouldn't be my cup of tea. Like I said, anytime something's breaking resistance, I'm always going to call it a bullish signal, whether it's something I'd be interested in trading or not. So an interesting one, maybe a couple weeks from now, if we're continuing to consolidate there, Paul, I would say.
Mhm.
A couple bears, our old friends at Tractor Supply, TSCO. I don't know if you guys had a chance.
I saw this one.
See
Yeah.
this one yesterday.
And their earnings report, it's an interesting one because when you have gaps on earnings, you're going to approach the next technical signal very differently. Give me AT&T, then back to Tractor Supply real quick. Because I was also looking at this one, gap up is maybe a fade potential here, Frank. I haven't mapped it out yet, but where you're gapping into like a falling trend and then potential weakness. But then Tractor Supply gapping down on this one, I would not play it to the upside as a gap fill. I actually like the momentum to the downside potentially. So back on TSCO, Frank, is that what you were seeing on TSCO, potentially like a bar by bar momentum play?
Exactly. Gap down pretty heavy on the gap down, right? But buyers were very happy to come right in off of that support level. I was watching for Tractor Supply for a breakdown back there in September when we were dancing around. Obviously, never broke that support level. Might not break it this time, right? On the flip side, you want to talk cheap risk. Hey, buy Tractor Supply here, put my stop loss right below that support level, and if it holds like it did last time, I've got pretty good risk to reward, right? But in a scenario like this, I'm personally looking more for that floor to be tested. And if we give out, if that floor falls through, look to the bearish side at that point in time.
And it's almost the perfect one that if you get a back and forth week where the floor is definitely just sitting there, and you could take the signal on Monday, by the way, on a momentum trade. So
Sure.
That's there, but it would not hurt at all to have a little healthy development back and forth through the week, maybe even just a few bars up and then turning back down or something like that. So there's a lot of ways you can play off of a signal like this, but now that it's post earnings and you got the volatility coming in, I'm interested in TSCO as a swing trade for sure.
So yeah, it's interesting, and Mark will like this, that it's now going to be below the 20 weekly, I believe. So whereas when we were kind of dancing back in August, September at that floor, it was still above it. This price action, I imagine, took it out. So I do think that makes for an interesting breakdown candidate. I do agree with you, Tim. If we can just get a little bit of just hanging out, I wouldn't really like the retracement as much as I'd like the flat line, just hanging out at support, not selling but not buying over a few bars, and then breaking down from there.
Very good. I love it.
All right, and that's about the best that I have going into next week.
I got four.
You got four?
Oh,
We got,
sorry.
we got lots of everybody
All right.
wants.
Yeah, let's do it.
Everybody wants.
Everybody
feels the love that Frank gets, and you guys all are looking for trader validation. Right
Hey,
now.
I'm
That's
happy.
What I feel like.
Well, these four I found specifically from the reports last week, Frank, and I wanted to get an updated read from a couple of you guys. Let's start with Lowe's, which I find interesting. When we were looking at it last week, Frank, we were looking at momentum to carry through. It never triggered and confirmed, but now you've got a pullback where you violate the old resistance. Pretty orderly retracement. Can you still be approaching this one as a potential candidate? Earnings are still out that 2-week window. How would you update Lowe's from week to week? Because we didn't get our trigger.
I'm gonna have to look at my own chart so I can see it. So my first thought is we can be open to the retracement off of the 20. This is hanging out at that old resistance, 20-day simple moving average, fairly, like you said, fairly orderly retracement. So if we can hold this 170, hold this 20, hold that old breakout point, get some confirmation, I don't see why we couldn't approach it from a retracement perspective. If it pulls back too much deeper, it's just not my cup of tea. I guess you could still do that. So yeah, I do think you can still look at this as a pullback. I think I might prefer, the VMware pullback, but this is a completely different space, right? And so I absolutely think that this one can stay on the watch list going into next week, especially if we can hold this. I mean, that's kind of a, big important price, right? Old resistance, 20 SMA. There are some technical catalysts there that, at least as of today, even have held through, right? Putting together a little bit of a hammer as we speak. So yeah, I think so.
The next one I was looking at, and all four of these I picked from last weekend's reports. Nike next here.
Yep.
And Noah, I love the development here. You know, if you never know when you're going to catch a breakout. You don't get to determine that. The market determines that.
Yep.
Stock determines that. And it may not even happen, Frank. That's why we call it confirmation for a reason. So if it did just run and break out last week, it would have been a good signal. But to me, this one still is very, very healthy for the week. You've got a pretty clear trigger above the resistance point here. Noah, what's your read on Nike here?
Well, one, I like it. One of the things I love about Nike is that it has it's not announcing earnings at the same time as everybody else. So right in the heart of earnings season, I always know Nike has already reported. So it's always something you can go to. And I love the chart. Who doesn't want a new pair of Nikes for Christmas? Come on.
Mm-hmm. Frankie, if I know my buddy Frank well enough, you like development like this, letting it kind of cook a little bit.
Absolutely. And I knew you had this one and I didn't want to steal your thunder, but thunder, this is absolutely a nicely developing breakout opportunity. So for sure, this will stay on my watch list. A break above resistance, nothing above us. We had that, knockout earnings report, had pretty good consolidation since that point in time really bland market, right? A lot of reasons to maybe take some profits on Nike, and we never really saw traders do that. And so, you can absolutely sign me up for a breakout on Nike.
Yeah. Two other ones in the healthcare space: Medtronic Mdt. Little nice development through the week, kind of holding out. The market's not done much, but it's not sold at all. I mean, Frank, do you still see this as healthy here?
Yeah, can we go back a little bit? I was looking at these guys, and the reason I didn't put them on my list is just kind of knowing Medtronic. They've got a lot of stuff along the way, and none of it's particularly scary stuff, but I had a hard time mapping out risk to reward that I liked. So I caught these guys, and I liked what I saw from a potential entry perspective. I just felt it was going to be a difficult one to map out risk to reward wise. And again, that's not saying that I'm right. That just might be my bias, but we've got that old floor in there. They've got some choppy stuff. I've never been a huge fan of these these guys from a trader's perspective. They're one of those worm burners a lot of the time that just don't do it for me. But I can see the entry, and if you aren't concerned about some of that chop above them and can map out the risk to reward, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to that.
We'll see if you're more interested in my last one here, United Health. You had mentioned them earlier, UNH. It historically has been a worm burner as well. It tested a breakout here today. Frank, weekly chart looks pretty clean to me. What are you seeing here in UNH?
Yeah, on these healthcare plans, I mean, they can move, right? But you're right, they move in weird manners. I think that this type of stock, I think the way I like them at least is out of the money credit spreads on your signals. And so as opposed to playing the pure break and getting caught up in the chop, and I've been caught up a couple times in the UNH specifically in the chop there and got knocked out. I've kind of got to the point where, I look at these and kind of use the out of the money credit spread as the way to trade directional, kind of a quasi swing position type of philosophy.
Like a bull put here.
So getting out of the money. Could I expect these guys to go up if they can, get that confirmation close? But I'm just not as confident in how they're going to do it. Right? Does a pullback happen 2 days later, and is it deeper than I would like my traditional swing trade to be? I love the healthcare plans, but they've traditionally, at least for me, been kind of a pain in the neck to manage.
Yeah, I think it's a fair call. Not everything is a good delta trade, from a swing trading perspective. And if you can get the cushion, Emily, then I think it can obviously play itself in. That's what I got here, boys. Marky, did you have any news items or charts or anything else you want to kind of finish on here? And you're on mute, by the way.
What about Noah? I thought Noah had a chart or two.
Oh, you guys hit them. You hit Nike, and I was already looking at Home Depot, but Lowe's kind of hit the same thread, so I thought they both looked about the same.
As I do every Friday, I have my Friday at the Market Bell class where we talk about the commodity charts. We're going to talk about a lot of different things and then go over any last second trade adjustments, ideas. We're going to do that for pro members at 3:00 Eastern. Here coming up in about an hour. So I'll have a lot of different thoughts there. But as a general thing, man, I mean, this has been like for some people, they might be like, oh, this was terrible. This was a great theta week. And next week could be interesting. It could go a lot of different ways. Yeah, a lot of different ways. And so I think between the Friday afternoon class tonight and then the Sunday night prep class, I'm going to have a lot of time to theorize about what I'm going to do next week. Little skittish, though. Little skittish heading into next week. I won't lie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, and that's fair. And by the way, if you are a pro member and you've been in our community for any length of time, you know that Mark does that Friday afternoon noon meeting, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, 3 o'clock Eastern, the last hour of the trading week. He kind of runs through any commodity updates as well as kind of trading updates. And it's a great conversation. People tend to love that one. And then the Sunday night prep class, I think, is attended, quite frankly. If you're out there and you're a pro member, make sure you put that on your schedule, because futures markets open, you got the weekend of price action, you can kind of get ready for the week, look at some of the scouting report potential, market conditions, stuff like that. So make sure that you do know that event is Sunday night, 8:30 Eastern.
And not to pass myself on the back, I've been pretty spot on over the last couple months on the general big theme of what I see was going to happen in the coming week. It's been pretty spot on for a couple months. So maybe I get a flip a coin and it comes up heads 9 times in a row this week, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
No, keep doing the good work there, brother. Let's go to Noah. Final thoughts there, Noah.
Kind of with Mark. I think the market's going to be a little skittish over the next couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. But in the meantime, I'm excited about Mark's classes. I want to get in there and watch those, so I'll be there silently paying attention.
I like it. Sneaking
Always
in,
a good time.
Getting some value.
I
Frankie,
may not be at Women in Trading tonight. You'll have to see if you can catch me, Em.
Yeah, that means he will be. It's just, can you catch him?
Not getting in.
Not happening. Not happening. That's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be setups. There's some interesting setups in tech. We didn't look at a couple, but like CDNS has a nice pullback. So they're, Marvel, MRVL, been one of the big performers. 5G plays is in an interesting spot. So there's certainly some interesting pullbacks in tech. We do have those big techie names next week on earnings. So, stay on top of that. It's, other than that, I mean, just make it through earnings season, doing what you do. Right. Don't chase. And, I complain a lot, but it really doesn't frustrate me. I just like to complain about earnings season because it helps me pass a couple of weeks that I don't really enjoy all that much. So, stay on top of those earnings, whether it's, to get in or to manage the trade. Right. Make sure you're taking that into account. I imagine, as we get into next week, but really the following week, we'll get kind of back into, a more, normal market, which, for me is always a good thing. I like stock picker markets. That's my type of place to play. And once we get through all this earnings nonsense, I expect we should have some fun opportunities.
Absolutely. I believe that as well. Emily, final thoughts for you?
Final thoughts. I'm laughing at Noah's little men interested in women in trading thing there in the chat. Final thoughts is obviously, yes, we do have women in trading tonight at 8:30, and all of you ladies who are regulars, I will see you there tonight. Any guys that are out here, if you've got a significant other, a sister, a sibling, a sister or wife, whatever, family member, just invite them over. It's a free event for the ladies because I really do want to grow this community of women in trading. So send the invite out to invite them over. But I tell you where else I will be this weekend. I'm going to be in Mark's class today at 3 o'clock. And I'm also going to be in his class on Sunday because it's Dallas week. And I'm going to be talking so much trash.
Oh, I was about to say, are you going to be crying on Sunday when you lose?
I am coming just to poke on Mark the entire time he is teaching both classes.
I love it.
Oh, I should join just to have Mark's back in the Cowboys.
Just to have a balance. Nope.
You guys going to double down on that trash, really?
I would take this seriously, except that your team doesn't even have a name. Like when you get a name, come talk to me. All right, Washington team name.
I am coming to talk to you. I'll
talk
see you
some
at 3
crap
o'clock.
to me. We're the Washington team. Yay us.
Who's the starting quarterback now, Emily?
I don't know. Don't ask.
It's
He doesn't have a name
This
either.
young kid. He doesn't have a name either.
I think his name is Kyle
It was
Allen. I
Alex.
think he
It was-
does have a name.
He
The
does.
kid that played in Carolina there.
Played in
for-
Carolina. Yeah,
couple
Alex
years.
Smith got to come in
And
a
we
little
did-
bit
yeah,
a
we
couple
got
weeks
Alex
ago,
for
and
a few quarters, and then that was it. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a great comeback story.
Listen,
was
I
a
have
nice-
nothing much to talk about either. So this is going to be a very interesting Sunday for the Dallas Cowboys and the nameless Washington team.
There you go. Hey, but that's the fun of sports. Have some fun trash talking there and enjoying it. Back on ES, Noah, as I give my final thoughts here and give me an intraday. Yep. First of all, just always an enjoyable time to come in and hang out with you guys out there, Team Tackle. We appreciate you guys so much, no question about it. Markets have been choppy this week, no doubt, and they've been back and forth in general, kind of risk-off attitude. We saw bond prices come down, Mark, where the yields have gone up. You've seen other signals across different markets. 3,400 is key here, and we're still 1.5% above that support zone. So, Frank, you could easily get chop for some time. There's a lot of different ways this thing can play itself out over the next 9 days. If you are in the mindset of Noah and Mark where you're concerned, or even, and I would be too if support doesn't hold, anybody. If you have that type of attitude right now, like, okay, I need to cover some risk, I need to hedge myself. One thing I would definitely want every one of you out there to do or to plan is do a margin check, do a risk assessment. If the markets do break down, what are you looking at? You know, if we catch something to the downside, can you cover it? Can you hedge it? I know going into the election, a collar is not an inappropriate thing. And we're still, you know, some time out here, obviously. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that now, but know those tools, you know, have the skill set to be able to put your foot on the brake when you want to, take the risk out of your delta in your portfolio and hedge. You know, we call it a hedge for a reason. So if you're of that mindset, definitely, I'm still of the mindset that if I catch good technical signals, I'm willing to put a swing trade on. And, you know, I know the closer we get to that exact Tuesday in the election, I might start hesitating on that, Frank, you know, very naturally, kind of like an earnings report, almost just a volatility event with some unknowns. Just pay attention to these support levels. They've been fighting all week. They are testing a little bit here today. And obviously there's going to be a lot of action over the next 9 days as we kind of churn this stuff out. Okay? Beautiful, guys.
Sure. Yeah, always good stuff, and always a pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me, team. As always, I'll see you on Friday.
Can we give a big thank you to Coach Frank and Coach Emily for coming in here today and joining us on a Friday, doing the good work here. Mark and Noah, as always, I appreciate you guys, the work you do for our community. If you're out there in Team Tackle Land, join us through the weekend, watch the reports, get prepared for next week. If you're not yet a pro member, I want you to listen and think about this right now. We have a very dynamic community that does content on a daily basis through our traders lounges, through our nightly shows, through our weekend reports. If you really want to be a trader and you're looking for a home, Tackle Trading is that home. There's a 15-day trial in the comments below of every one of our YouTube videos. Click it, come and join us, see what we do on the back end. It will definitely be something that is of value to your life. All right, guys, a wonderful week of stuff here. We are done for the week. We're out. We will see everybody on Monday or